Hello, my name is Father Demetri. Today, again, as I walk through this life, and the older I get, I still remember one of the things that my spiritual father told me while I was in seminary. But I want to start before I say it. It's something I want to talk about is the story that he told me ahead of time, which really moved me. He said, and for those of you that aren't Orthodox, one of the traditions of the Orthodox Church is that the priest, and usually in the altar and everything like that, you kiss the priest's hand, you venerate his hand before you give him something or before you take something out of his hand. It's a sign of respect. It's something that you do as a sign of respect for the priesthood, who is representative of Jesus Christ. So with that being said, when my spiritual father, when he was younger, got ordained, one of the first things he did as the altar boy was handing him something is he actually kissed the altar boy's hand. I thought it was very interesting that he had kissed the altar boy's hand. In the back of his mind, he was so nervous that he instinctually did it. But it was something that I carried with me. It's not necessarily that he told me about it, but the story itself really moved me. It's something that I've still remembered to this day, that you shouldn't forget where you came from. As a priest, it's very easy to sometimes to lose track of who you are. Sometimes a lot of priests become high-minded. They become better than anybody else and better than everybody else. And it happens, pastors, priests, it doesn't matter who you are when you deal with the church. Sometimes people become like that. But to me, it was very important for me to remember who I once was, that I too once was an altar boy. And when I'm dealing with altar boys, when I'm dealing with different people, it's important for me to remember that, because I need to remember that once I stood in their place, and I am standing in the place where the priest was. But I went forward a little bit more, and I'm going to tell you that as a teacher, you also need to understand, you also need to look at people and remember that you were once a student as well. You shouldn't forget that you were once a student when you become a teacher. A police officer should not forget that they were once a troubled kid. I know there's a lot of problems with the police officers now, but ultimately most of the cops are good people. And they need to remember that they were once a troubled kid, possibly. You know, any walk of life, you need to remember where you came from. It's so important to remember who you were, and as parents especially. A lot of times we parents forget that we were once children. We forget that we expect children to think like we do. We expect children to think logically. We expect children to think straightforward. But a lot of times we forget to go down onto their level when we're talking to them, and we get frustrated when they don't think like we do. We're the parent. We're adults. And we often forget that we were once a kid and that our parents were struggling and doing the same things with us to the best of their ability. But the closer I get to God, the more I understand who God the Father is, who Jesus Christ is, who the Holy Spirit is. The more I get closer to Him, the more I understand how it is and how I need to be patient with people that I deal with, the people that I serve, the people that I take care of. I need to look at everybody equally. I know it's similar to what I was talking about yesterday, but it's very important for me to reiterate that you need to remember where you came from. It's very important that we don't forget who we used to be. As a Christian, I never forget that I was and still am a sinner. I never forget that I was once a troubled person, and sometimes that I still have trouble. I never forget that once in a while that I fail, I fall into temptation, I sin, I make mistakes, and that I never am any better than anybody else. The further up in the ranking of the church, so to speak, the word, the further up you go, the more of a servant you're supposed to become. When Jesus came, He came to serve, He came to help, and He came to teach. And on the day when He decided to wash the disciples' feet, He did so with humility. He did so with love, and He washed the feet of His disciples. Those people did not think that He should be doing that, but He said, you have no place with me unless you do that, unless you allow me to do it. And do it to other people when you go see them as well. It's important for us to remember that just because we become some high status person in society, that we don't become the people that people get angry at. Because a lot of times that's what people get mad at as Christians in the church. People get mad when they see a priest acting the way he's not supposed to. But we often forget that the priest is a human being too. We often get mad when we see police officers acting like when they're not supposed to, but they're human beings too. They have fear, they have anxiety, they have all the things going through their mind, and a lot of times they deal with life and death situations. Sure, there are bad priests, there are bad police officers, bad people all over the world. There's bad people probably more than there are good people. But the plain and simple fact is, we shouldn't forget where we came from. We need to remember the grace of God that filled us is the same grace of God that fills everybody else. The same mercy that we're given is the same mercy that we should be giving other people. We need to have that grace. We need to have that love and that compassion. And there's something that I probably explore at a later time, and I'll leave you with this, that my spiritual father, another one of my spiritual fathers, the ones that told me, is that we need to have unconditional acceptance for people. But I'll let you kind of mull that over in your mind, and the next time I might go over that too. So I hope that you have a blessed day. Hope you have a safe 4th of July, and may you be blessed and loved and taken care of, and may the grace of God be with you always. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding.